And so LinkedIn is really important because, so many opportunities can come from it when you create a great presence, even if you're not looking for a job. You'll see on LinkedIn that a lot of the most popular posts tend to be the ones where people are kind of telling their stories, talking about mistakes they made, things like that. LinkedIn is really focused on conversations. The algorithm is focused on conversations. So the more you comment on other people's posts and the more you engage and have back and forth conversations, the more it's going to help your content eventually get more visibility in the feed.
An optimized LinkedIn profile is where all of your personal information is filled out, and it gives out a very clear message to your audience on what you do, who you are, and what are you an expert in. This helps your profile rank higher in the LinkedIn searches and also builds trust when it comes to people who want to connect with you. But the question is, how do you optimize your LinkedIn profile? I'm Anushka, and in this episode we'll talk about how can you optimize your LinkedIn profile. And we have with us Lorraine. Lorraine is a top career and business virtual keynote speaker with more than 3 lakh LinkedIn followers. She speaks to global audiences ranging from Fortune 100 companies to startups, including Zoom, Cisco, McKinsey and Company, and Amazon, on how to stand out and supercharge their presence on the social media. Lorraine brings 10 plus years of experience from companies like Prezi, LinkedIn, and SlideShare, and is an 11 times LinkedIn Learning instructor.
Welcome to the show, Lorraine.
Thank you so much for having me.
The very first question I have is, I think most people have, is that why to even consider LinkedIn to have a presence on? Why is that important?
hmm I think when LinkedIn first came out onto the market, and it was the case, LinkedIn was known as a jobs and resume site. And I think a lot of people have kind of kept that old impression of LinkedIn in their heads, but it has become so much more than that. It is really your online landing page, and it's often the first place that many people go, recruiters, colleagues, prospects, to look at you and to find out more about who you are. And so LinkedIn is really important because so many opportunities can come from it when you create a great presence, even if you're not looking for a job. So it can be while you're working at a current company, it can be while you're building your own company. So no matter what your situation is, LinkedIn can really kind of enhance whatever your goals are. The other thing I would say is that many of us are virtual now or hybrid or remote first. And so being on LinkedIn, again, think of it as your online landing page, really the online office. And so if you're not there, it's going to look strange.
Absolutely. I think it can be very overwhelming for people when they start out LinkedIn if they start out a bit late. What would be the, top three things that you would want them to consider when they create their profile or when they've started their journey on LinkedIn? What would be those first three things that you'd want them to focus on?
I think you touched on it, Anushka. The profile is really kind of that foundational piece that you need to set up. So there are, of course, the pieces of advice you hear very often, like have a good profile picture, for example. But the ones I like to share are the ones that are a little bit more forgotten or not even known because they're newer features. So the first one I would say is to create a video cover story. And so anytime you go on someone's LinkedIn, you will see an orange circle around their profile picture, and you'll see them speaking for like 2 to 3 seconds. That is because that person has a video cover story. And so that's going to be a really unique way to stand out and for people to really feel like they know you a little bit better because they can see you talking and they can see you smiling and they can hear your voice and all of that. So definitely video cover story. I just spoke to my college recently, and someone left in the feedback form, I didn't even know that that existed. So that's definitely a newer feature. The second one I would say is to focus on your background cover photo. So that is the kind of the big banner that appears behind your profile picture. And that is an often neglected part of the profile as well, even though it is literally one of the biggest pieces of real estate on one's profile. So definitely including a background cover photo that shows a little bit about you, talks a little bit about your background, helps, call out a CTA that maybe you want people to take, a call to action that you want people to take visiting your profile. That would be my second piece of advice. And then the third one is to turn on something called creator mode. And you might not use this right away,
Mhm.
but creator mode allows you to get first access to a lot of new features on LinkedIn, a lot of content creation tools. It also makes your profile more discoverable, and it actually rearranges your profile a little bit so that certain content focused features like your featured section or your activity section will move higher up on your profile and be more visible.
For the longest time, I think I did not have a cover image on my LinkedIn, and
Oh,
then
yeah?
so,
Have
yeah,
one now?
exactly. And then sometime back, I realized that it actually does take a lot of real estate. It takes the
It
most amount
does,
of
yeah.
space there, and that's when I went on Canva because I was just starting out, and then I created something and then I put it up there, but because it was just blank before that, and so I think
Yeah,
it's
I know,
really
yeah, it's like, why not take advantage of it? Yeah.
Exactly. So it really is neglected when we come to it. Now, personally, in my journey, more than optimizing my profile, something that I struggled with was, creating content. So my next question would be, what would be your advice to people who have started, again, on their LinkedIn journey and are now to the point where they are thinking or considering that how do I really, start creating content for the field that I'm present in?
So I would say three things come to mind for me when it comes to content creation, especially for beginners. So the first thing I would say is to figure out what type of content you're most comfortable with. So there are a lot of different options, which is a good thing, but maybe it can be a little bit overwhelming and you feel like you have to do every single bit. You don't have to. So, for example, there's text posts. You might upload a video. Maybe you upload a carousel. You might do LinkedIn Live, you might do a poll. So there's a lot of different options. So figure out what you want to experiment with first. Just pick one or two to start and don't worry about the rest.
Hmm.
The second thing I would say is to really stay consistent. And I actually tell people to set the bar pretty low. So LinkedIn recommends if you are creating content, you're a new content creator, to post at least 4 times per week to build up that audience and that consistency. But I say do like once a month, like whatever you think is
Hmm.
feasible. I think 4 times a week is way too ambitious for someone just starting off and will cause you to burn out and just get overwhelmed very easily. So whatever the lowest bar that you can achieve is, maybe it's once a month, that's great. And I think you will soon see that once a month is very manageable. And then you're going to exceed that and maybe do twice a month. And then you build on that. So staying consistent for a schedule that works for you. And then over time, you build up to that 4 times a week. And then the last thing I would say is to comment first.
Hmm.
So a lot of people get very nervous posting on LinkedIn. I was like that as well, and I even worked at LinkedIn, but they get nervous posting. I
Hmm.
get it. It's tied to your professional identity, your profile. But when you comment first, I feel like it's a lot lower stakes because you're not broadcasting something from your own profile and instead you are commenting on someone else's content. So I think that's a really nice way to kind of ease into it, to ease into posting on the platform. And then later on, when you do decide to post your own content,
Hmm.
that commenting is actually, from an algorithm perspective, is going to help boost your content in the feed.
A follow-up question I have for that is that although I know that, when it comes to creating content, it's very subjective to each person, it's their own tone and, each field. But a general format, if you had to recommend a general format when it comes to, creating content, uh, again, very general, what would that format look
Sure.
like?
I would think about who you're trying to reach, so
Mm-hmm.
have a sense of who your audience is. And then I would focus on being really authentic and genuine. And so not trying to sound really professional or smart, just speak in your own voice, be
Mm-hmm.
yourself. I think you'll see on LinkedIn that a lot of the most popular posts tend to be the ones where people are kind of telling their stories, talking about mistakes they made,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And then the third thing I would say is to make sure that the first part of your post, the first sentence or so, is a hook. So you want people to want to click that see more button because
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn only shows like the first 2 lines of what you write. So making sure that you have that enticing hook to draw people in is
Mm-hmm.
important as well.
Great. I think that's very insightful because it actually comes down to that, you have a hook and then you can go about deciding the tone of your content, what it's going to be like. Now, something that as I mentioned, that I made a mistake when I left my cover image empty. What would be those, common mistakes that you've seen people make or maybe made yourself at some point? And then what would your hacks be when it comes to, hacking LinkedIn or optimizing LinkedIn?
Yes, there are quite a few that come to mind. The first one I would say is maybe more in terms of mistake is
Mm-hmm.
when you send a connection request to somebody. There's an option to add a personalized note to that message.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think you can only message someone with an in-mail and you need a premium. Well, I guess you get a certain number of free ones, but then with a premium account, you need to, have that to be able to send more.
Yeah.
But there is an option after you click connect, there will be a little prompt that says add a note. And so
Mm-hmm.
before you click send, click add a note. You will have less space than you do in an in-mail, but just adding some sort of personal touch, explaining why you're reaching out to that person or what you saw on their profile that intrigued you, will go a long way. I know I personally like pretty much anytime someone has a message, even
Mm-hmm.
if I can tell it's of a like a salesperson,
Mm-hmm.
I accept it because I'm like, okay, they put a message in. It just looks a little bit more, legit and official. And on mobile, a lot of people think it's not available on mobile, but it's just a very hidden feature.
Mm-hmm.
So on mobile, to the right of the connect button, you will see three dots, the hamburger icon. You click on it, and then you'll see personalized invite. So that's how
Mm-hmm.
you'll send a personalized invite on LinkedIn on mobile. In terms of hacks, I would say setting your profile to public is one that I think a lot of people don't do because I don't know, they just for whatever reason feel like they don't want to expose themselves to the world or they feel like only people who know them should be able to see it. But I think ever since I've had my LinkedIn profile, which is many years now, I've
Mm-hmm.
always had it to public because I want people to find me and I want to I want to remove any friction points. So if there is a recruiter and I'm looking for a job, I don't want the recruiter to only see part of my profile. I want them to see the whole thing and be like, wow, Lorraine is amazing and reach out to me. And so I hope job seekers,
Mm-hmm.
listening, take that to heart because I think setting the profile to public and really allowing people to see how amazing you are and all the amazing work you've done will go a long way in providing more of those interesting opportunities. And then the third thing, I alluded to this earlier, the hacks of commenting.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't realize that LinkedIn is really focused on conversations. The algorithm is focused on conversations. So the more you comment on other people's posts and the more you engage and have back and forth conversations, the more it's going to help your content eventually get more visibility in the feed.
Something that I had no idea about was that, so I've been using LinkedIn for I think 3 or 4 years. And today in this conversation, I got to know that on mobile, you can actually go on that, icon and send a personalized note. Because before this, I was
Yeah,
making it a point to, save that person so that I can later go and connect with that person through my
yeah,
laptop. And
exactly. A lot of people do that. Yeah.
exactly. And then now I know. Now I
Now you
know
know. Yeah.
exactly what I need to do. So thank you so much,
Good.
Lorraine, for coming and doing this episode with us. It was very insightful for me. I am sure this will be very insightful for other listeners we have. And thank you once more.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Top Connect. If you have any questions related to the topic, do check out the links in the description below. As promised, here's your chance to win a one-on-one call with Lorraine. All you need to do is post your top 3 learnings from this episode on your social media and don't forget to tag Topmate and Lorraine. Also, if you're listening to this on Spotify, don't forget to tell us what you'd want us to cover next. I'm Anushka and you're listening to Top Connect, an educational podcast by Topmate, hosted and produced by me.